welcome to the Nature in the Abstract exhibit at the Josephi Center in Joseph, Oregon. And we want to show you some of the artwork and also introduce you to some of the artists who've done the work that's featured in the exhibit. There are over 100 pieces here, and they come from across the Northwest and even California. So with us here today we have...
I'm Dawn Norman. I'm the Exhibits and Programs Director here at Josephi Center, and I also have some work in the show.
I'm Debbie Land, and I'm co-curator with Ellen Bishop, and I have a piece in the show.
I'm Ed Pitts, and I'm here to learn. I'm taking a couple pieces of art.
I'm Susan Peshti Strobel, and I have 2 pieces in here.
And I'm Linda Robinson, and I have 3 pieces in the exhibit.
And I'm Craig Peshti Strobel, and I have 3 pieces in the exhibit.
Great. So I'm Ellen Bishop, I'm the narrator, and we want to just show you some of these artworks and introduce you to the fact that they're made in two different categories. One, as you can see in the upper corner of the screen here, is called Abstractions of Nature. And the idea is that the artist has been inspired by an abstract pattern in nature or some abstract feature that they want to portray. And the other is called Nature in the Abstract, and that basically is for images that are simply a photograph or a drawing or a painting that shows in more detail a pattern that exists in nature. So, for example, these are a couple of mine, and all of these are for sale, by the way. This one here is titled The Elements of Fire, and it's actually a photograph of a sunset this past summer when there were forest fires everywhere, and I thought the pattern of the clouds and the patterns of the sun as a red ball dropping through into a dark pattern below was cool. And then the one down here is titled the Sandstone Intaglio. It's a pattern found in a sandstone in a national park in Kentucky. And then this one is by David Jensen, and it's a piece called Spruce Animate. It's basically a photograph of I'm presuming a dead tree that David found out in the middle of the woods somewhere. When we come over here, we have kind of a mixture of some of our categories. These include Jennifer Hawkins Conley's aging experiment, #1, called Ocean Dreams. And then we also have over here next to that some pieces by Leslie Ann Hauer that are based on patterns that she's seen in rocks and geologic formations. These are really kind of interesting. They are by Leslie Leviner, and this image, both of these images basically are done not just with paint, but also with the materials from a white-faced hornet's nest. And so Leslie basically took 3rd place in the category Nature in the Abstract.
Hi, I'm Linda Robinson, and these 3 pieces are mine. They're watercolor. I work intuitively. This is my first exhibit, and I was thrilled to have my pieces accepted, and I was more than thrilled to win a 2nd place for this piece. In this, I'm working with pigment. I was interested in the granulation of this beautiful black pigment and the way it disperses on the paper. And what emerged with me, I don't go in with a preconceived idea of what I'm painting, but what emerged for me was the prairie and the carbon sink that the prairie is, and then the layers, and including dispersal up into the atmosphere, really. And these, I was working with a similar palette on both of these. They were part of a series. And the murmuration the stillness here, and then the flight of the birds coming out of this lower half. And again, it's all intuitive. I don't know where it's going when I start, but it's a lot of fun. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Craig Peshti Strobel, and these two pieces are part of a series that I've been working on and developing for several years now, that I've very deliberately been looking at doing what I call landscape abstracts that take patterns or colors found in the natural world and sort of abstracting their essence in sort of a Rothko-esque sort of big blocks of color. And so this is entitled Shore to Shore, and I was sitting on one side of Wallowa Lake looking from one shore over to the other shore. And then this is entitled Iconic Landscape Revisioned. And this is abstracting the iconic look at the foot of Wallowa Lake up into the three mountains at the end of it. So this third piece is entitled Dance of Life, and was painted this last fall when the kokanee were running in the Wallowa River. And so it's just sort of the movement of the water and the dance of the kokanee there in the riverbed.
I'm Ed Pitts, and this I call the iguana's intaglio. It's the footprints and tail dragging of the northern desert iguana in the Owens River Valley, and it's in a double ghost town of Kiefer, California. The town died when the Comstock mines played out, but they just put in a railroad, so the railroad worked for a while and the town grew around that, and then the railroad quit, and Mr. Mulholland took all the water to LA, and it really killed the valley. So this is the ghost in a ghost town.
Great, thank you, Ed.
This is Marky's rattlesnake, and we're down in Oceanside, California, and she was cleaning leaves out of the garden, and they petted this rattlesnake. So I grabbed it, put it over in the nearby canyon where we get gophers before the gophers got us.
I'm Debbie Lind, and this is my piece called Magenta Derriere. I took tulips and iris and designed using fractals and graphics of a dragonfly in the derriere position, which just means they're cooling themselves. And I believe it's my interpretation of nature and abstract. And thank you.
I'm Susan Peshti Strobel. These are the two pieces that were selected for the first time ever in my life for an exhibit, and they are interpretations of nature. I have always been fascinated by trees, but now that we have moved to Wallowa and County and also to the lake, now I'm obsessed with trees. And so my two pieces represent not just trees and what I called them Timber 1, Timber 2, very original titles, but I stitched using buttonhole stitching in the shape of timber as it is cut, or sometimes it's broken here by the lake. And I also wanted to represent the environment historically, the lumber industry, with the flannel shirt and also the denim background. And of course, just to commemorate the lives of the workers. Sadly, there could be accidents, so there's a bit of blood trickling down. But then the similar thing can happen with trees when sap oozes out. So there is this interchange of things happening to people who are involved with timber, with trees.
Great, that's a great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Dawn Norman. I'm also the Exhibits and Programs Director here at Josephi Center, and I entered a few pieces in this show. I have a small watercolor on walnut that's just a relatively abstract landscape, sort of in an impressionistic style, of dandelions in a field. And then I have this photograph, and I use a lot of photographs as source material in my work, but I don't typically show them on their own. But this one I just thought was, I didn't feel like I could improve upon it or match how interesting the textures and pattern is. So I'd say this is a example of Abstractions in Nature.
Yeah.
Yes, and this one is a Nature in the Abstract.
Right. So we should go around and take a look at the other entries and the other pieces in the exhibit. So we have Jane Glisson with Frosted Lilies, a photograph, and Susan Schomburg's Nescowan Rocks. As a geologist, I'm glad that so many people have sort of earth sciences involved here. Okay, this is Dina Brown's Yahat's Double, and Rick McEwen's Observing the Observers, which is a piece that you really need to look at very closely, because the closer you look at it, the more you see. We have lichens on rocks. We have slackwater up here. We have a number of other enticing fabric pieces. This by Jennifer Hawkins Conley. It's a multimedia show, and so we have ceramics, photographs, just all the good things. Renee Fleming's prints, basically, that include a look at mostly water and rocks and air and birds. And then there's honorable mention in abstract by M.C. Reardon, which is, I believe, a photograph of driftwood. A number of people have presented photographs that include reflections and abstractions of leaves. M.C. Reardon's photograph called Lily Pads and Reflections is one that's been featured on our posters. And then this is also M.C. Reardon's photograph of water and reflections. In the way of three-dimensional pieces, we have Monica Eng's really exquisite ceramics, basically look at fish here, called School Days, and a really, really wonderful piece of wood sculpture that shows a great deal of care. And then second place, rock product. We also have Kolakali Riggs driftwood assembly, MP Beach's Holy ? And Kolakali Riggs really very fine drawing, basically, that looks at Bark Region number 5. So we have a large exhibit, and we'll just swing past the library and the seating area here and come over and look at Rick McEwen's first award-winning photograph of lava. Again, as a geologist, I'm really happy that so many people are looking at the Earth in this exhibit, called Illustration of Permanence. And then another one that to many people looks like feathers, but what Rick actually took a photograph of here is patterns of ice on a window, and it's cleverly titled Window Ice. But it's a really lovely piece. We have a lot of fabric art in here. Interpretation of Nature. Basically, our first place is basically by Heather Tomlinson, called A Wahi Life. And right next to that is another one of her pieces that's called Prehistoric Semblance.
Here we have Ellen, our narrator, with her face now.
Yeah, so this is titled Blue Ice, and it's a photograph of ice from a puddle in which there was a series of breaking the ice and refreezing it, and so there was a really interesting pattern developed. You get little ice crystals where some of the refreezing was happening. Then over here, basically I've got a pattern in the painted hills. This is a photograph printed on wood. I really like the texture that brings out in this piece. And then kind of looking at a rose and its patterns that kind of give you a circular view of the rose, but also kind of draw you into its life and its form, more than just seeing a colored rose. So here we've got our judge, Susan Merrill, who teaches art at Eastern Oregon University. Susan basically is hanging these as an example of her work. She does a lot of really, really large installations as well as really interesting abstract art. So take a look at her
Yeah,
work.
let's get a little closer look here.
Yeah.
And these can all be found on our website under the exhibits tab, Nature in the Abstract. We have a virtual exhibit for both the adult and youth categories.
Okay. And over here we have Esther Bentz's kind of exotic wood pieces. One called A Match Made in China and the other called Naiad. And then there are some abstract landscapes, kind of looking at abstractions of nature. So Nicole Norman has done both of these. This is Winter on the Palouse. This one is called Renewal. And this is a piece by Jennifer Hawkins Conley, who's depicting Hurricane Creek. It is in fact a landscape that's full of abstractions, which Jennifer's done a great job with. This is Lynera Jones's Helianthum anise dance, sunflowers. Talk a little bit about Leslie Leviner's hornet's nest.
I'll just give a little close-up here.
It's actually, if you get a close-up, you can see that this is actually made out of the hornet's nest's material. Leslie found a hornet's nest that had been blown out of a tree, and she wondered what possible use you could make of a hornet's nest in art. And so she's made two kind of painting compositions with oil or acrylic as a centerpiece here that's kind of the nest entrance, but it also mimics the pattern of that nest. This is by Marie Cumber.
Marlin Green.
Marlin Green, okay.
Softness of the Sea, and it's a photographic print. We have a couple of these watercolor mixed media paintings, or cut paper, cut watercolor paper. Maya Shaw. A couple of abstract, 3 different abstracts. Color Study 2021, number 3 by Sherry Dallas, Oil and Graphite on Panel. And we have 3 in a similar style here. This one is Color Study 2021, number 4. And Color Study 2021, number 5. Here is a painting by William Burkett.
Just so you get a scale, this is
it's
a really
quite large,
nice,
really.
big piece. So we're happy to have a variety of sizes here, as well as different media and different media. So let's take you over to the youth section. We had a youth category in this show, which I think was really well done. This is Nathaniel Bazer's Bizarre Eclipse, and Mackenzie Kiefer's Waterfall, and Andy Miranda's Seascape. So all of these are done in wool. And Dawn, could you talk a little bit about the art class that was.
So this is Jennifer. Those three were made at the Joseph High School with Jennifer Hawkins Conley, who we saw a couple of her pieces. She has a fiber piece on one end and the Hurricane Creek painting on the other. And she has a really fantastic art program at the Joseph Public High School. So actually none of these were created here at the Josephi Center, but several of them are from Joseph High School.
So this is a photograph by Hazel Steffens, Foxglove Falls, and this is kind of an exotic multimedia piece that depicts the road to home, which may be littered with obstacles, I guess. And we have some three-dimensional pieces. Saxon Baron's called Bonehead, and then another sculpture by him called Snake in the Brass. We have a sort of a takeoff on a floral bouquet made out of newsprint.
Yeah, it looks like painted newsprint.
Painted newsprint with a real Coca-Cola bottle. And then Megan Brock's Harsh Reality, which is kind of a cool little piece, especially if you look down on it.
Okay.
And then over here, we have Mackenzie Kiefer's Basalt. So once again, Earth Sciences went out. Anyway, he won second place in the youth category for this. And then we have a whole variety of other interesting pieces, including Fabricated Rabbit that won honorable mention in the youth category. And then first place, Megan Brock's My Mountain. Okay, so that pretty well concludes our tour, except for a couple of pieces over here. So another Maya Shaw piece, which is really done exquisitely with cutouts, and sometimes it's recycling of paper, repurposing of papers. This is called Fallow Fields. Doris Steiger's River Road Ice Spirals, two by Kathy Bowman. Kathy basically had done a lot of sort of pen and ink pieces. These are digital drawings. One of them is The Essence of Paint. So there's a horse hidden in here somewhere. And then another one, Yellow Bars and Wallows. Key Beaches, Lentz Park, Cole Norman's Idaho Yard Mushroom, and behold, Nicola Norman's Trapped, which I think refers to the rocks that have surrounded this poor hapless stump with roots. Anyway, it kind of makes you feel a little bit like some of us have during COVID, I guess. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this, and we hope you come down and actually see the real pieces.
And the show will be up through February 22nd. Then after that is the women's exhibit.
And the Josephi Center is open what hours?
12 to 4, Monday through Saturday. And you can also check out the virtual exhibit again on josephi.org.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.